Let's make sure that we're live. Hey. Actually, I'm just going to guess that I am. How's that for a good start? Happy Wine Wednesday, everyone. I hope your Wednesday is going fabulously. Hope your seahorses are healthy. I hope you didn't have as much electronics trouble as I've had today. And I hope that you're all having a get through it together kind of time in quarantine. No one's joined me as of yet because I started a bit late, so I'm just gonna start chatting. Anybody who joins, the link's already in the chat room, and you can join if you'd like or comment from the comment section. Okay, so, anyways, today, I don't know, I think I've showed you guys this before, but it's my absolute all time favorite. It's called Bread and Butter Pinot Noir. It's only like 13 bucks at the freaking grocery store, and it's amazing. For anybody who's not much of a wine person, this stuff is smooth like you can't believe. Like, really interesting and lovely aroma and flavor. We all know I'm not a wine connoisseur, but I really like it. So, definitely, that's my recommendation for the day. I found out too recently that we're not supposed to actually sip wine on any kind of these things. So that's always fun. But hey, we've been doing this for a while. We've been good. I'm going to say we're good. Hey, Ray's here. Hi, Ray. How are you?
Howdy. Just a little tired.
A little tired still?
Yeah, today was clean the barb tank out, and then a couple of weeks ago I got a time slot at Walmart to get groceries, and so I had to go pick them up 6:30, and then when I get home I have to sterilize everything before it comes in.
Sure. And, oh, maybe not. Sorry, I was trying to adjust something, but maybe that was not a good idea. Well, I'll tell you, Ray, I want to ask you a few questions about what you just said, but I do have a couple of questions that came through on the page that I want to cover today. But before we get to seahorses, well, actually, I guess it's still kind of about seahorses. I want to know what's going on with your seahorse. And very quickly before that, you said you got a slot at Walmart. How are things going with quarantine in your neck of the woods? Or is it lockdown still, or?
Yeah, it's still locked down, but um, Walmart, well, any stores that are still open, like food stores are open, but uh, like you can't get your hair cut and can't get my dog groomed. Gas stations are open. Some banks are open. Um, Grocery stores are open, and the grocery stores have a seniors hour, an hour before the regular people can go in. Um, but for me, even that's a risk because of my kidney disease and lung. Um, if I get the virus, I'm dead.
Right, and we don't want that. So you, of
No.
course, that's
So Walmart has shopping. Well, they had the shopping before that, but I never use it because I like to pick out my own stuff. Well, now it's a case of I have to accept someone else picking out it. And believe me, when they're picking apples and pears and bananas, they don't do worth a damn.
right. Oh, I'm sure. I've, so many people recommend that, and I've just always been like, I'm an avocado person. I've got to pick
Yeah,
the avocado I want. I'm like, okay.
yeah. Well,
Any,
this is the first time I've used it, but I'm going to have to use it now until they get a vaccine and un, until it's actually available to me and I get the vaccine,
sure.
then I'm going to have to do this now.
Right. Hey, Nicole, hi. And let me know if we sound really loud. I don't know if it's just my headphones or if we're coming across really loud because I can try to turn it down if we are. And if not, then cool. I like it loud. But
I'm loud anyway.
yeah, we're not going to worry too much. Just I'll check the comments in a second, Nicole. Let me know. But Ray, it's kind of what we're doing here in my area. In the U.S., they're treating every state differently. And the president has released a phased out plan to reopen America. And a lot of people have criticized it. I think it's pretty decent. He's leaving it on the states. If the people in the states don't agree with what their governor does, then they should go to the governor. Because there are states unhappy here. I was really excited because fortunately for me, I'm not in a position where I'm you know, I'm more concerned for others. Let's put it that way. So, like, as in the phase out plan, in all three of our phases, anyone who's over a certain age or has health risks is supposed to stay at home until we're truly sure that, everyone can come out. And so,
Here, if you're a non-essential worker, you're supposed to stay home.
mhm.
Here,
Right, and that's how we've been up until May 1st is when, and some of the states are already doing it, where they're allowing, say, a restaurant to open. I don't know how the restaurant thing is going to work because it's supposed to be the restaurant can open the dining room, but they can only have 10 people in the building. So I don't, I don't really know how that's going to work out for a restaurant. But they're just trying to do it slowly, and people,
people that are protesting, they'll go to the restaurant. They'll
well,
go to these massage parlors. They'll go to the barber shop. They'll do all this stuff with the close contact because they don't care.
Well, it's not that though. I agree with you in some situations, but like I'm just speaking for myself only, is that I very much care. I told my father he's never allowed to leave his house again, right? And because I've, had my own health issues in the past, I'm very cautious, but my main concern is for people like my father and people like you. So I wouldn't want to be a carrier. So I'm willing to do whatever the guidelines say. I'm not complaining. I'm not saying any of that, but I am going stir crazy at the same time. So I'm just hoping that we, the whole thing is safely reopening, so that possibly people with these conditions don't, stay at home until we have a vaccine and a treatment. But then the people who aren't, they need the antibodies. So people have some healthier people have to get it to create the antibodies. You know what I mean? So I don't know.
You know,
It's a tough
I
thing.
can't even have my kids around.
Right. I and it sucks. And I don't disagree with your opinion. And I don't disagree with anyone's opinion, frankly, because I see both in every single side of this thing, and it's just, we just need to come up with a cure. Dang it. Come on, scientists already. Come on. But and that's the other thing, is that you know everybody's looking at this reopening, or when we do find a cure, and everybody's really worried about the economy and really worried about just whether or not their companies will reopen. And I happen to be on the other end. I'm thinking, like, I've spent some of this time wisely. I've been making videos, y'all. And I took a couple courses online, and I'm just seeing like this could be an opportunity for a lot of people to get out there and do things that they wouldn't have before, if they spent their time wisely, anyways. But it is scary. I'm just trying to be positive and, hope that we can safely reopen, because I know,
Well, there's going to be more people that won't be worrying about the economy because they open up too soon. There's going to be a greater number of people dying. And when you're dead, you don't worry about the economy. Believe me.
sure. And Ray, I can't say enough times that my main concern is, although I don't think that it would probably, I shouldn't say that, Lord help me, I don't, but I think that I would probably be someone that could live through it. I don't even care about that. That's not enough incentive to go back to work and get out there and go to the beach. It's that my biggest concern is that I would be a carrier and hurt someone like you. So I get your point. And I think a lot of people feel the same way. It's just tough tug of war. I see a lot of comments. I'm gonna come look. Sorry, I didn't mean to go all economy on y'all.
We
Um,
have people like that here too. And when I come across them, I just say, well, if we do what you want, then you're putting these nurses and doctors that are already at risk, you're putting them at an even greater risk of dying. And do you have a right to put that onus on them? That kind of thing where they have to work harder, more of them are going to die just because you want a certain thing.
No, again, I don't disagree with you, and I'm not trying to encourage or say that I'm okay with anybody doing anything unsafe. We literally just paid $50 a piece for these ventilated, really not attractive masks. We made some at home. The kids and I made some at home for just going to the store, but we bought these heavy duty things, and it's not because I'm concerned with myself. It's because I don't have a right to put your life in jeopardy. I completely agree. And I'm not at all the person that you're going to see at the beach until it's open, per everyone says it's safe. So just to make that clear, I just see both sides. That's it. But anyways, and I want to get to the questions. But Ray, while I'm looking over the questions, can you give me an update on your seahorse?
They're still having the pouch emphysema.
And so it's more than one then. I for some reason I thought
Yeah, there's two of the three males have it.
for anyone who wasn't with us last week, Ray shared that two of his males have pouch emphysema, which is something that's just terrible to deal with. Ray was saying he's had good luck and success with treating this in the past, but he can't get Furon 2, right? Is what you could not get.
Well, you can't get anything now.
Right. Right. And see that's part of it.
Yeah.
We gotta go back to
And
work. Sorry.
the only thing I have left is a bottle of bio bandage. So the last time I had to evacuate the pouches there, I took the yeah, hypodermic, the needle,
Right. Right.
and I injected bio bandage into the pouches, just hoping that it's probably long expired, but I know for a fact that human medicines used to be pawned off to the pet shop industry, and it was repackaged, expired for the purposes of human, but was okay for pets. So I know it's got a long life, even though it's gone past an expiry date. So I'm just hoping that the biomed is the same.
Yeah. And I mean with that, it's not got any of the really deep ingredients, right? I mean, like, sorry, there's ambulances going by. I don't know. Anyways, but it's not got anything that would like expire, so to say, other than you're just not supposed to use things after the expiration date, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't even have the package to know what the expiration
Oh,
date
oh,
is.
oh I didn't hear that part. Sorry. Oh, well, crossing fingers.
I'm not worried about it. Like
Yeah.
it's a case of it's what I've got, and I can't get anything else, so I try it. If that
Right.
doesn't work, looks like I'll be stuck doing evacuations for a long time.
Right. I know. I remember Dan said something about if you can't get like bio bandage. I think he was even. Ooh, I don't want to misquote him, but I think he even said like neosporin or ointment, antibiotic ointment, the clear gel. I'm gonna check on it, guys. Don't take my word for it until I ask him and make sure. But and Ray, why are you using bio bandage? Just out of curiosity, I was trying to listen and do something. I'm so sorry. What?
Well, probably about 15 years ago, I tried it on external bacterial wounds.
Okay, and it worked then.
I didn't really see that it was making any difference in it. Whoops. Um, I thought the ones that I didn't do it and just was treating with the furan and the trisulfa, I thought it was getting by just as fast with that rather
Hmm.
than it was with the ones I used the bio on. I was also doing the furan and tri and doing the bio in addition to it. And I never saw wounds healing up any faster than without the bio. So
Hmm.
I just stopped using it in the bottle. I didn't throw it out or anything. I just kept it. I
Sure.
keep everything.
And how did you say you're going to use it in this case with pouch emphysema? That's the part I got lost on.
I took the needle, it's a 1 ml uh, content, and I suck a milliliter up in it, and then I have the pouch opened up with the
And flush
rubber
it.
tip bobby pin, and then I just put the needle up there and then squirt the stuff into the pouch, make it displace the water that's in there with the bio bandage.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, I've never heard of that, but I definitely please keep us updated. Let us know if it worked. Um, because has anyone in the comments have you guys had to deal with a seahorse with pouch emphysema? Because I have, and it's not fun, and it's terrible when you go back and you think they're doing better, and then you see them up at the top of the tank again. Ugh, makes me so mad. Are your seahorses are still eating though, and everything, right?
Oh yeah,
Just floating at the top. I think that was another one of Dan's stories. And another time on Wine Wednesday, he was telling us about how he had a seahorse that literally lived that way for many years, and a seahorse who lived without a tail. So you just never know. I'm so glad you're not giving up, and let us know what works. Because biobandage, you never know, it could be the next thing. All right, gonna check the comments before we go to the questions. Did I miss anything else, Ray?
nope.
And Victoria, no, are you being serious? Victoria, Joy Brewer said she heard that they're using Diamox to treat COVID-19. um, please, no one is.
Maybe that's why they're dying.
I was going to say, no one is saying you're wrong, but anyone watching the channel, we do not recommend trying things that are not prescribed by a doctor ever, ever. So please don't try anything unless your doctor or healthcare provider tells you to do so, please. But that's interesting. I had not heard that. Interesting.
I noticed today that the NIH has told people not to use that treatment that Trump was pushing.
Well, there's, I'm to the point at this point. Really quickly, I want to say, I missed the name. Filoso fish. Am I saying that? Filoso fish. Let me know if I'm saying that correctly. Actually, one of the questions was what do I need to get started in a tank? So give me just a second. I promise we're going to talk seahorses. But Ray, I don't even hardly listen to our stinking news anymore because it's just every day back and forth. So much, do this, do that. So I just wait for the actual guidelines to come out. You know what I'm saying? I've heard a lot of stories of people having luck with it and it working out. But I certainly would never try it or recommend that anyone try it without having doctor approval. And that's kind of the case with anything they come up with right now. That's what's so scary. I think Nicole, I think aren't you a nurse or a doctor? I'm so sorry, I forget these things. But correct me if I'm wrong, but anything they come up with at this point, even if they come out tomorrow and say, they have come out with all these antibody tests and, supposedly they're making medications based on that, but we're not going to know if something works for a really long time. Like, even if they say we found the cure, it's worked 100% of the time on these 500 people. If in 2 years they drop dead of something caused by the, I'm just like, it's really scary to get hopeful, but um, I don't trust anything until my doctor tells me to do it, or there's so much studies and proof. Because someone was arguing about this. Last thing I'll ramble about, guys. Someone was arguing about this on a post on Facebook the other day about how non-medical people had absolutely no right, which I took a little bit of offense because they said they had no right to have an opinion. I don't agree with that. I think everyone has a right to an opinion and a right to speak. That's freedom of speech, people. That's why we have our news being crazy, but bottom line is they have the right. But the whole premise was, if you're not a medical professional, don't give medical advice. And I do agree with that, you know. Um, and I just think that even the medical professionals, and Nicole, again, please correct me if I'm wrong, but even the medical professionals were hit with something they don't know what to do. So they can take previous studies with other diseases and other, pandemics and whatever, and they can try to apply things here and they can see how it works. They can try new things that they've learned with technology, see how that works, but it's going to be, to say they've cured it is going to be years, is my opinion. And I'm going to check real quick if Nicole said anything. uh,
Well,
huh,
they've never yet cured the flu. This
right.
might be the same.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And when you get to that point, and again, I don't disagree with anybody here, but when you get to that point, we can't just shut down forever. I don't know what the answer is. I don't want anybody to be unsafe, but oh, it's scary. And Nicole said that's why the antibody testing is so important. If you've been exposed and or had the disease, your body will develop the proper antibodies to show it, and life can start to get back to normal for those people. So Nicole, based on that, because I always didn't really understand the curve thing. I understood keeping it safe for hospitals and keeping them not overwhelmed. I I shouldn't have said I don't understand. I do. But as far as a cure and etc., I'm very curious. Like, for you're saying that people who get it, get over it, then have the antibodies, life can get back to normal, and they can even donate antibodies to help someone else, right? But that's how seriously. How long are we talking about? Seriously, how long are we talking about for enough people? And if nobody's outside, how would anybody get it? Do you see what I'm just trying to work this through in my own head. So help me out. But that being said, let's move on to a better topic because I didn't mean to go rambly on y'all. One of the biggest questions, Ray, that I've gotten lately, even though we talk about it a lot and I've done a few videos, when people see my videos or hear us talking, they say, "Oh my gosh, seahorses." There are still people that like didn't realize people were keeping seahorses, which makes me glad we're doing this. So one of the biggest questions I constantly get is, where do I even begin? Aside from research, because that's kind of what they're trying to do, even listening to us. Where does someone begin, let's say, like with equipment? What are the top things that you consider important when you're setting up a tank?
I think that's going to all depend on the person that's doing it.
Sure.
If you get someone like me that hates to spend money, I'll spend the money on seahorses, but I'm not going to spend it on an expensive tank or equipment. Um, I've always built my own light systems. Um, Basically, if I can build it myself, then I do it. I don't buy something,
And I don't,
skimmers,
yeah.
anything like that. And so I start off with a tank like this 40-gallon tank behind me here. Uh, I think was 36 something when I bought them. I bought four of them,
Hmm.
and a 20-gallon sump onto them that was about $20 for each of those. Um, but you want me to pay $1,000 for a tank or something like that? There's no way.
Right.
On the other hand, you've got all sorts of people that's what they want. Um, and I don't begrudge them that, but it's just me personally. I don't need to see a nice tank around there. I need to see my seahorses.
Right. It depends on what you want for sure. And you just proved the point that you can set up a seahorse tank without spending a fortune. Ray has proved it time and time again for years. And so, it's what you want. And when I got asked the question, my response was pretty much the same, Ray. I was like, well, it depends on the species you want to keep, because if you're talking about dwarfs, it's totally different than an erectus. And, the temperature for abdominalis, you keep two of my favorites, abdominalis and barbori. But anyways, when somebody asks me that, I try to find out the basics, but there are a few key things that really just you got to concentrate on. It doesn't matter if you go expensive or not, but it matters whether or not your tank will succeed long term based on these things. And you guys in the audience, some of you guys are pros yourself. Let me know what's important to you when if someone asks you, what do I need to set up a seahorse tank? What's the most important things to concentrate on? What do you tell them? What do you think? So I started writing my little thing out because I'm working on the post anyway, or the article anyways. And Ray, you can correct me anytime here, but I was just thinking the things that matter the most is the tank, mainly size, not the type, not the etc., but the size, making sure you have adequate space, adequate when I say space, I don't just mean for the seahorses to move. I mean for all of the organics and because you have to overfeed seahorses, so you got to have enough space so that it's not gonna be crazy. Plus surface agitation, right?
I got to stop you there.
Go ahead.
You don't have to overfeed seahorses.
Okay. All right. Go ahead. Correct me.
Well, I believe, and I've been doing this for a long time now, and it's probably the single most thing that I've done to be more successful than I was before.
Okay.
And that is to feed four times a day. I feed enough for them to eat in 10 to 12 minutes, and that's it. And if I'm feeding them any more than that, they're not going to get the benefit of it because
You're right.
at that point it's pushing the food on through them and it's not in the system long enough because their digestive tract is so rudimentary it can't extract the nutrition when it's moving through. So you give them enough to load up the digestive tract, and then it'll sit there and be processed more. And that in turn means you're going to have less waste coming out,
Hmm. Less
makes your
organics, right?
be better for a longer period of time.
Hmm.
And if you wait, say, half an hour, three-quarters of an hour, and feed them again, for those that can't be around all the time to spread the feedings out, half an hour, three-quarters of an hour is enough for that processing to start. Then you feed them again, and they can push through and start absorbing the nutrient from a new load. And then, so that's before you go to work in the morning. Then when you come home at night, usually you have a bigger time period that you could spread another 2 feedings out over.
And that's why I love you, Ray, is because you're absolutely right. So thank you so much. Were you finished? I'm
I,
sorry.
I can't say I'm right. I'm just saying
No,
that's what's good for me, and to me, what's up here processes it that way, and it makes sense.
you know what? I'm being dead serious. I'm so glad you're here, and I'm so glad that you stopped and corrected me because when I said sometimes I say things here and here, but it doesn't come out right. I couldn't do my thing. Anyhow, bottom line is what I meant was you can't feed seahorses once a day. When I was saying overfeeding, I meant like you have to feed them differently, not overfeeding, differently than like your reef fish. Your reef fish, many people get away with one feeding a day or, whatever. I'm not, just whatever. Ray is absolutely correct. It's better to do multiple smaller feedings. And one of the things that I tell new people when they say, how much do you feed? Do you feed a cube? Do you feed, Sean, I'm live. Sorry. Um, one of the main things I tell people is that if the food is left in the tank for long periods of time, you're not doing it right because that's what leads to the problems is decaying food at the bottom of the tank. So Ray's absolutely when I start get a new seahorse and I'm not sure how their feeding habits will be. What I do is I don't stand with my face at the tank because that scares them, but I'll put in the amount that I think they're gonna need and then see if they're starving again in a half an hour and make sure that they eat it all. A little more detailed than that, but I'm getting distractions. I'll try to write it out. But Ray is absolutely correct. Thank you for correcting what I said because you're right. And then the next thing, aside from tank size and understanding feeding, which we kind of just covered, but as far as setup, I would say figuring out filtration. So like that's why a lot of people say if you haven't kept a reef tank before, don't try to keep seahorses. I personally disagree with that statement because they have different needs, but you could learn seahorses from scratch just as easily as a reef tank. However, understanding filtration is really important. So when you talk about and when I say filtration, I mean mechanical and biological. So Ray, what do you tell people when they're asking about cycling the tank and what needs to what's just the basics of what you tell people?
To cycle a tank,
Yeah.
well, I use ammonium chloride, but a lot of people uh, are able to find a liquid ammonia household cleaner that doesn't have anything in it, and that works great too. Um, I've still got liquid ammonia that's probably 2 decades old, um, and haven't been using it because so many years ago I bought a tiny bottle of ammonium chloride that I got through a pharmacist that I know, and so I always use that. Um, now, um, the last tank I set up there about 4 years ago, I guess it was, when I got these barbs from Australia and the abdominalis from Australia, and the abs tank, the 90-gallon tank, was already cycled.
Mm-hmm.
The 40-gallon tank was not cycled. Uh, Before I went to the airport to pick up the seahorses, I filled up the tank with stuff that it already had mixed up, and I come home and I put them in the tank, and then I added, uh, yeah, Chloramax.
Mm-hmm. Chloramax to keep them safe, right?
And then my test kit, can't remember the name. Aquarium Pros, does that make sense?
API or
API, yeah,
okay.
API you can test, you can use that even when you're using a product like the Chloramax.
Sure. Or Prime
So
or something. Mm-hmm.
give you your readings.
Yeah.
So it's a case of I keep adding the Chloramax all the time, and if there's a trace of ammonia showing, then I add more. And I kept on like that until eventually didn't need to add it anymore. The tank was cycled.
Sure. And in your case, Ray, I'm just curious. So in your tank, what you use for biological media is just rock, right? Is that
live rock that's in the sump.
Okay,
Well, I have some pieces in the tank that have the leather hand or leather finger, I should say, and
sure.
the Kenya,
Yeah.
and the macro. Well, the macro is originally on just one piece, but now it's spread all over, and it grows so much it breaks off, and then you get these little balls that are the size of a lemon. Uh, that are thrown over.
I know what you're talking about. I do. And guys, I was actually working on a macro video recently, so please keep coming. I want to say hi to Jim and Ray. So right, but what I'm trying to get at, and I didn't mean to cut you off. First of all, guys, anybody new, what I first want to get at is that he's been doing this for a very long time. It is absolutely true that you can cycle a tank very quickly using Chloramax or Prime. Many people, Ray doesn't, but many people, including myself, have used beneficial bacteria. You got to make sure it's the right kind, like Dr. Tim's. But what I was mainly getting at is when someone's asking about how to set up a tank, yes, you do need to explain the cycling process and tell how you did it. But what I was mainly looking for right here is what's actually doing the work. So you got biological, you got mechanical. So in Ray's
Yeah,
case, he's usually using rock, I'm sorry, as his biological main, most important filtration that keeps that tank actually cycled. Even though you're not overfeeding, but often feeding seahorses. So make sure you got to make sure that you either have. I saw in the comments, Holly. I'll get to what you said in a second, but I saw in the comments, a lot of people like sumps because you can store more of your biological bacteria housing, which could be rock, which could be K1 media, which could be the Brightwell bricks. There's so many products that you can use anymore. But when you see a Seahorse tank online and it's just a bunch of chains, I can almost guarantee you that there is a sump with a lot of filtering and filtration media and materials going on to take care of that tank that looks so bare and empty. Because, yeah, I can't even imagine, yeah, somebody who didn't understand that. So, biological, Ray uses rock. I've used multiple different medias. Um, you can also get into like macroalgae kind of gets in between. It's kind of mechanical, it's kind of biological. It does both kind of filtration, but it's good. But we'll just talk macros some other day because we're looking at the basics today. So then, as far as mechanical filtration, Ray, what do you usually do? I saw Holly
I
mention.
usually tell people that pick something that suits your personality. If you're lazy, you want something that's very easy to clean very frequently. Uh, if you never ever get lazy, then you can go for something that's a little bit more involved, and like you could even use a canister filter if you're that type of person. But if you're a person like me, you don't want to use a canister filter on a Seahorse tank.
Right,
You
and
want to clean out anything mechanical. Uh, I prefer twice a week. Some people say once a week is enough. Actually, there are people that say you don't even have to do it that often. But then again, I'm not so sure how long their seahorses last.
sure. Well, with mechanical, what I'm getting at for anybody who's like kind of like, what is this lady talking about? What I'm getting at, you got the biological rock, you got the mechanical, which is like your skimmer, which is like your filter media, your socks that take out the big gunks of stuff, and that you do change, replace, clean, or whatever to constantly take out the bad stuff. The machine or mechanical filtration does it, but then you got to remove it. And you can become part of the mechanical filtration too by doing your water changes and cleaning your skimmer properly and cleaning your socks or replacing them. In my case, one of my favorite methods is to use an algae scrubber in the sump. You gotta harvest the algae or it's not gonna work. So you're part of the mechanical filtration in my mind. Gotta make sure you understand how you have to do water changes, why you're doing them, and I just think that one of the things Dan taught me from the very beginning is it's important to worry about the biological and the mechanical filtration. So I'm passing it on. And Holly, I did see you said skimmer. I'm the same way. The only tanks that I don't keep have a skimmer on are my smaller tanks, and they're usually typically not long-term tanks. So I'm kind of crazy, y'all know, and I have multiple Seahorse tanks. So I'll have a couple of 30 gallons, or I think of a 39 in there with just like two seahorses. Maybe they're new. Maybe they're a species that I don't particularly want to put with other seahorses or whatever. Those tanks are a heck of a lot more maintenance because I haven't found a hang on back skimmer that I like. And I just they're in the bedroom, so sumps and anyways, they'll eventually be moved to a bigger, better tank, or I'll make improvements to the tank because long term, without like a skimmer and stuff, Ray does it. I don't know how, but I couldn't do it. I like my skimmers. I like my scrubbers. All right. Um, and Philo, so here in a second after I quit rambling, I'm going to go back and read your actual question where you told me what you have, and we can go through that. But let's see. We covered tank size. We covered feeding. We covered filtration. What else, Ray? I'm saying just a quick. We talk about it a lot, but quick thing about flow. What are you worried about flow in a tank for?
Well, I tell people basically you want minimum of 10 times the volume of the tank, um, preferably closer to 20, and I'm usually a little over 20. Um, the main thing is that you don't have a direct flow that can blow a seahorse against something to be
Sure.
injured.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, um, if you've got a direct flow, it can be a nice strong flow, and you'll find the seahorses swimming into it because it's a massage. They're itching.
Yeah.
It's when the seahorse sits in a bubble stream.
Mm-hmm.
It's giving them some relief. Well, the same thing happens with that stream. And so if you've got a power head blasting from one end of the tank to the other and nothing in the way, the seahorse isn't going to be damaged because he's not going to get blasted right against the other end of the tank.
Right.
Uh, so that's the main thing. And also, I prefer to have areas of low, medium, and high flow so that the seahorses can pick for themselves what kind of flow they want at any given time.
Couldn't agree more. That's
That's a personal thing, but that's the way I feel.
one of the things that I always try to mention when we start talking flow. And it's something that Abby Underwood from Seahorse Source taught me a really long time ago, and I just loved it. And I try to explain it in one of my videos, but I don't explain it very well. So I'll try to really quickly, simply do it here. So everything Ray said is correct. You got to have flow, not just for seahorse fun, but to get rid of all the dead spots in the tank. Make sure nothing's sitting and going to like leftover food you didn't see fall back behind the rock. That's turning into yucky stuff that's going to mess up the tank eventually if you don't fix it. So flow keeps that from happening. No dead spots. Ray was right to have some spots that aren't, terrible flow so they can relax and chill if they want. But when you see my videos, I literally had a tank where it had one little power head and the seahorses just sat all day. The second that I moved them to a bigger tank with wave makers, they were like different seahorses. They, are all over the tank all the time. They're constantly playing and frolicking in the in the tank because they like it. They're I just think it's more like their natural house too. Anyway, so back to Abby's statement, and it was that you're getting flow from your either hob or your pump and your sump return. You're getting flow from that. You're also going to want flow to take care of the dead spots, so like power heads, wave makers, etc. That you got to make sure are covered so the seahorse tails don't get caught up in them and hurt. But Ray was right on the numbers too. That I agree 100%. 10 times turnover minimum, more like 20. And when we say turnover, what we mean is, let's say you've got a pump let's say you've got a 60-gallon tank. So 10 times turnover would be 600 gallons per hour. So if your pump is doing that, then you would want to get wave makers that do another 5 to 10% turnover. Does it make sense? I hope it does. I feel like I never explained that very well. When I set up my tanks, it works. And with my flow also, I usually keep one in the back, kind of way low, pointed up, just because that helps get behind the rocks and just keeps it a moving. We want the flow in the tank to circulate it, bring it up towards the surface, and then go down to the sump or hit the hob where it can go through the mechanical filtration and get fixed. Did somebody else join? Oh, I thought somebody else joined.
I went
Okay.
and enlarged went to full screen on the screen that I was watching, and when I did that, it turned the speaker back on or the sound back on.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I just find it, turn it off again.
All right. Well, I had a few more points, but I want. This is getting pretty long, and I want to go to the actual question. So apologies, really quick. I'm skimming through. Nicole, you said you were talking too much. I don't see you barely talking. Come on, lady. Hey, Mermaids Reef. How are you? I guess Cindy couldn't come today. I was hoping that Cindy would come and share today. She will someday, I'm sure. Let's see. Some, Oh, Mermaids Reed said the symptoms of COVID are almost identical to altitude sickness. That's really interesting. So they really are looking at Diamox? Wow. That would be fascinating. I never said it was wrong. Wow, incredible. Okay, no drinking tank water. No, no. All right. Let's see. Sorry. All right, so you guys were just talking all sorts of cool stuff. Okay, so you have a 72-gallon bow front with a 20 long sump and fuge. But it leaked. You resealed it. It doesn't leak. Hoping it's sufficient. I can't help you on the resealing thing. I always go get a new tank because I'm just not that handy. And I did have help one time and tried to reseal a tank, and it lasted for about a year and then started leaking, and it was a disaster. So I can't really comment on that, but I'm sure if you did a good job on it, and a 72-gallon bow front would keep you quite a few seahorses, for sure. 20-gallon
Here's the
sump.
problem that I've seen with people in resealing tanks. They do not get the old silicone totally removed, and silicone will not stick to silicone.
That's a good.
You've got, you've got to totally get it off. So anytime I do it, I razor blade them. I take erasers and I go over it even when it looks like there's nothing there. Um, I tried a silicone remover, but I wasn't happy with that. It didn't do much. The dry eraser actually worked better.
I'm letting you have it because I just don't reseal tanks, guys. I'm sorry. Ooh, no. All right. So then I saw that, but yeah, hopefully that'll let us know how it goes, please. Okay, so Nicole made a very good point that when we start talking about the minimum tank size for seahorses, everyone, obviously the recommendation is 30 gallons per pair of seahorses. Lots of reasons for it. I won't go through them again. But Nicole made a great point, and I think every seahorse keeper goes through this. You start off thinking, okay, well, I'm just going to do a cute little 30-gallon seahorse tank with just a pair of seahorses and live happily ever after. First of all, if you're talking about a Hippocampus erectus or many other species, they breed like rabbits, and you're going to have more seahorses soon. Other than that, even if you got two girls or two boys or whatever, her point is very valid that you look at it, you love it, you start getting into macros, you start getting into, the corals that can go with them or tank mates. Then all of a sudden it's crowded and you want more room. And then you got to upgrade the whole thing, which is fun in itself. Don't get me wrong, but it gets too costly. So, Nicole, you made some very valid points. I'm so glad you made them. She wishes that she had started off with a bigger tank. So when we say 30-gallon minimum for two, really go 50, seriously. And then she also said start off with a sump. And I do agree with that. I saw another question down below. We'll go back to the coral, but Filoso, I hope I'm saying that right, said, are you suggesting something like a hob for the lazy person? No, I'm very lazy, very lazy. What I'm saying is the more you put into setting up the tank right to begin with, the more research you do, you see what's worked for the people who've kept the seahorses for a long time, not someone who just started. No offense to anybody who has, but you see what's working for them, and it's typically they've got a stomp, they've got a system, and they'll explain their particular system, but it's usually more room, sump included. You don't have to have that. You can set it up easily with a hob, but it just doesn't typically work long term. With myself, I'll give you this for an example. With myself, I said I've got a few tanks that don't have a sump, that don't have a skimmer on them, but they're always temporary tanks. And because I've been doing this for such a long time, I can just kind of tell. I'm not a genius, guys, but I don't know how else to explain it. You can just kind of tell when the quality's going or you can just kind of tell when the seahorses aren't as I don't know how else to put it. Or else you miss it completely and then there's something wrong and the seahorse is sick or whatever. We don't want that to happen to anybody. So while you're new, especially, go bigger is my bottom line. Go bigger, research, get all the equipment that you can. Or if you want to be inventive and make it, that's fine, like Ray. But just, on your first tank, go bigger, do a sump, do a skimmer, because what you put into it is going to last longer. I guess that's my bottom line. You don't have to do any of that stuff. You can do hot, but no, for a lazy person, you don't want more work. So in my tanks, I go big, on my permanent tanks. I have a scrubber, I have a skimmer, I have high flow almost. Not to where they can't swim around. They can very easily swim around, but it's high flow compared to most seahorse tanks. And that way I don't have to do as much maintenance constantly. I just got to clean the scrubber and do a water change. That's like really, and clean the skimmer. That's really it. Soak the pumps every, couple times a year. But if you have a hob, you're going to end up doing more water changes, or a smaller tank even. You're going to end up doing more water changes and just more maintenance. That's the bottom line. So lazy person, do more at first. All right, I've rambled on long enough. Ray, do you agree with that? Or oh, Ray left me. I didn't even see I was looking at the questions. Okay. Anyways, we're doing great tonight. I'm going to cut it soon, guys. I really don't want these to keep going past an hour, but okay. And yes, Mermaid's Reef had me backed up. Sump with a filter roller would be best for the lazy person, right? I've not actually tried the filter roller. Do you have a video on it? I'd love to see about the filter roller. I saw it at Macna. I really wanted to try it, but I was like, I just didn't. So let me know. All right. Oh, Philoso, as in philosophy. Oh, it's okay. Philosophish. Got it. Love it. Okay, so I don't think I missed it. Okay, no, you did ask. You have a lot of leather finger corals, so are these good with seahorses? I'm gonna say yes. The only thing, we talked about this last week, the only thing that comes into play when you're talking corals is that you have to have the lighting and the temperature that corals need, and seahorses are typically need a lower temperature, and the lighting doesn't really matter, but the more lighting, the more algae is going to grow, and algae will grow on seahorses. So, that upsets a lot of people. They want to scrub it off for seahorses. Long story short, just lower lighting typically in a seahorse tank and lower heat. So as long as you have coral that will be okay with 74 degrees or less, then I think it's fine. And leathers, in my personal experience, have been totally fine with seahorses. You just want to avoid anything that will sting. And we didn't really talk about cleanup crew today. We'll have to catch that on another time. But cleanup crew is another way you can tell if your tank is cycled properly and completely, because if they're doing well. I always use personally the ammonia test, which I've talked about so many times. I won't talk about it again. If you want me to, comment and I will. But I use the ammonia test up to 2 ppm to make sure that the tank is fully cycled. That's my method. And okay, I jumped around a little bit, but I think Ray come back. Ray came back. Ray, he was asking about coral that's good for the seahorse tank. He was commenting on your leathers. I said leathers are great.
Yeah.
Anything else that you've seen that just really works out?
I haven't gotten into a lot of corals that many people have, mainly because I had uh, reef tanks for so many years that I don't really need it. And most of the ones that are suitable for a seahorse tank aren't the ones that, if I'm going to have them in a tank, I'd have them in a non-seahorse tank again, just because they're not suitable.
Right.
When you look at elegant corals, hammer corals,
Right.
I love the long polyped corals.
I like the flowy ones too. They're my favorite.
Yeah, and they've got lots of motion with the flow and so on. Um, and then when it comes to the SPS, there's a lot of them that aren't suitable. Um,
Right.
Part of the reason because seahorse water is too dirty for them.
Sure. And the other reason, I'll just jump to it real quick. The other reason is that seahorses hitch on everything. They're going to hitch on everything. So, and if you like the flowy corals, my best, and the other problem with the flowy corals, flowy LPS, are that a lot of them sting. even though they might not sting all the time, but they have stingers, come out at night, blah, blah, blah. So just stay away from stingers, stay away from sticks in a seahorse tank. That's my personal opinion. I've seen people pull it off, but if you're worried about your SPS, don't put some expensive SPS in a seahorse tank, because if they hitch on it, it's gonna tick the coral off. It's gonna block the sun from the coral. Blah blah blah. If you like the flowy corals, check out gorgonians. They're really beautiful. They're so flowy, and they kind of look like coral. I don't know. They're very beautiful. I love gorgonians, and they can fill that void for you if you need it. Plus, seahorses hitch on them, and it doesn't seem to bother them as much. Maybe stay away from the non-photosynthetic gorgonians, because those are a little pickier and need to be fed. But the photosynthetic are just fabulous. And other than that, there's a debate back and forth about zoas and polys. So I just don't keep them in with seahorses. I know a lot of people that do. I know a lot of people that have had trouble. So that's bottom line. And Ray, I am gonna look through the questions and then cut it off tonight. But we should talk again sometime about the starfish thing. We need to talk about cleanup crew again. But anyways,
I don't have any.
so you don't eat
I've never ever had a cleanup crew.
really
Not in 18 years.
in any of your tanks or in any of your seahorse tanks?
Well, in the reef tanks, I had lots of things there, but they weren't there for cleanup. They were there because I liked them.
Okay, so why don't you use cleanup crew? I never knew that.
Well, I don't see a need for it. I'm doing vacuuming. Like when I do my tank cleaning today, first thing I do is take the magnets out and clean down the glass. I can't clean the bottom at that point, but I clean it all down and then let everything settle. And then as I'm doing the water change, I suck out all the stuff on the bottom, and I have bare bottom tanks. Um,
You just don't need them.
yeah, I don't have a need for it.
I actually think you're probably right. It's one of those things. Are you lazy or not? Really,
Well, too
seriously.
many people think that it's the be all and the end all, that it's going to keep you from having to do certain things in the tank.
Right.
And then you wonder why they end up with bacterial infections.
Well, right, but it's because
They think the cleanup crew is supposed to be doing the job.
right, they're not doing enough work because they're counting on the cleanup crew. And you made a good point in one of our other Wine Wednesdays that if you're counting on the cleanup crew to actually like remove stuff, they might remove the actual food, but then they let it go too. So it's still in the water. So, I mean, good point. I like to use snails. I guess really it's that I really like them. And they help me not have to clean as much. But Ray's right. If you're depending on something to be lazy, you need to be careful because it'll probably catch up. So we'll leave it there. But my particular cleanup crew preference is snails. And I don't use crabs because lots of times we've heard bad things or good things. It's kind of up to your preference in the snail or in the crab department. All right. So, Philosophish, did I do okay in answering your questions? Do you have any more? Did I miss anything else? Okay, you said you've been water testing it for the past week and it's held up. I was trying to read all the comments. I'm curious how you cycled. I'm just curious. Because you're testing the tank, but are you feeding the tank? And I don't know your level. If I'm saying something that you already know, I really apologize. But I made this mistake when I first started in that I didn't understand the nitrogen cycle quite so well. And so I didn't understand that I had to actually feed the tank, and that just testing it after adding the original feeding, or the bacteria wasn't enough. You have to feed it up to 2 ppm so that you know that it can handle what a seahorse is going to put out. That probably was very confusing. Let me know. But I'm sure you probably already knew what you're doing anyways. Let me know though. And let me know, like, what are the side things that you are expecting to be different with seahorses that maybe we haven't covered in depth, but you'd like us to get into? I would love to. And how many times a week do you recommend for water changes? You keep getting that nasty brown algae film. That's why I like the snails. No, I'm just kidding.
Not necessarily how many times a week, and nobody can really tell you for your particular system, how often you're going to need it, because it's going to depend on, first of all, the type of equipment you have. It's going to depend on what seahorses you have, the species, the numbers, the size of them. Um, it'll depend on how much you're actually feeding them. So there's so many variables there. It's a case of each individual has to find out for themselves. And I I tell people I prefer to go to the extreme first of all, and then maybe start backing off, but don't make uh, too drastic a change when you're cutting back. Go for 6 months at least before you make another change, because this is a condition that is usually so gradual that if you make a couple changes over a 2 or 3 month period, uh, you may not find out that an interim stage there was a step too far, and think that only your last change was the one that finally did the damage.
I agree.
Because it's a process that's happening so slow in many cases. Now, again, it can happen fast too if you're really
Right.
bad at it.
We're gonna concentrate more on macros, the good and the bad, very and not algae in particular very soon, because I realize we don't have a video on dealing with that. So I promise we're getting to that. But Ray's right. And I noticed a couple other comments that who said it? Holly mentioned that mushrooms are really good as coral in a seahorse tank. Completely agree. Never had a problem with mushrooms, and there are some pretty ones. I have some Supermans. Oh, so pretty. Actually, I think they're called reverse Supermans. I'm not very good with the names. Okay, and long polyp toadstools, great option for flowy. Correct, mermaid's reef. And I think what's the different? Is the toadstool the same as the? What did you call it, Ray? What did you call your coral?
Oh, I've had toadstool, but I don't have one right now. I've had the toadstool, the leather hand, and the leather
Leather.
fingers. This is a finger that I have here now.
Gotcha. Can you can't probably reach over. Hey, if anybody, you guys, if you ever want to join and like show us your tank or anything, you can join on the phone or show like Ray is right now. If you can see it, beautiful
No,
tank. I can
this,
see it.
I can't. Yeah, but I can't.
Focus.
This isn't long enough for the camera here.
No, I got you. Just letting you guys
Uh,
know if you ever want to jump in.
Set up the laptop to be able to.
No worries. No worries. Maybe sometime there's. I need to go back and actually like put titles on the Wine Wednesdays, because Ray did walk us through his tanks one day, and even the downstairs that he's got set up so cool with. Well, I won't ruin the surprise. I'll find it and repost it. Okay. Anyways, all right. Did I miss anything else? You recently were told that zero nitrate is bad, Nicole. Zero nitrate was told it's bad. Well, not trying to jump around, but I saw Philosophish saying that you were just testing the tank for the resealing, not actually cycling yet. So gotcha on that. And Nicole, your question about zero nitrate. Ah, I
I've never tested nitrates in a seahorse tank.
I hadn't heard that, to be completely honest. I could see it being true for say a reef tank or even a macroalgae tank, because they use the nitrates. That's kind of they need them. But in just a seahorse tank, I can not possibly. I can't believe it would be zero in a functioning tank. That's amazing that you've got it there. Um, I'm gonna have to check on that and get back to you. That's something that I will look into and do my own research and get back to you on that, because I just hadn't heard it yet. But I will write it down as soon as we get off here and let you know. Yeah, and Mermaid's Reef said corals zero is bad because it's a food source, right? All right, and Philosophish said you've had freshwater tanks for 30 years, finally got into saltwater about 3 years ago, and we can't wait until you do keep the seahorses, because you're gonna fall in love with them, I promise. And we want you to, as you're building the tank, feel free every week when we go live. I put the link in at the very top, and I can always send it to you via email if you want. If anyone ever wants to jump in and talk about whatever you want, we're open here. Me and Ray shoot the breeze because, we're trying to help people, but and get together and Wine Wednesday together on Wednesdays. But if you ever have questions or want to show us something or show us how you're going with something or doing something or ask anything, you just jump in the Hangout link. You gotta have Google Hangouts, but that's it. And then you can jump in and show us on the screen what's going on and show everybody. So just a thought. All right, and Nicole. Okay, well, and mermaids, we've said for fish only, the goal is 0 for NO3 and NO4 or PO4. Right, that's what I thought. But I'm going to look into it. Okay, guys. Well, I am going to cut it short for tonight because it's not short. It's been an hour. Boy, we can talk. I just love you guys. Miss you when we're gone. I think Ray left me already. Did he leave me? Something happened to my video call. All right. Well, Ray, I apologize if I accidentally booted you. But if you left, then I'll see you next week. And guys, hope you're doing well. Please let us know if there's anything you want us to chat about or any videos you want me to put together now that I get all this time on my hands. All right. And let me know how all you are doing because I really want to know. And I'll see you next week. Happy Wine Wednesday. Cheers.